When you look at conventional power systems, and that is central power generation, they can never compete with distributed energy because every power station, be it nuclear or fossil, wastes about 60 or 70% of its energy in cooling towers to dissipate the heat to allow the condensing water to come around to the boiler again. Well, when you do it locally at a local level, you've got a combined heat and power unit or a trigen unit, then what you're doing is you're saving all that, you're using the heat and the electricity, and you're getting 85% utilization on site, and you've got shorter distances to carry the energy so that you have less losses in transmission. And of course it's very secure, because if you have a large grid network, it's dependent on a few dozen or a few hundred power stations, and these power stations can be knocked out because a lot of them are on a fuel, maybe coal or maybe oil or maybe nuclear, and these are dependent on fuel supplies, and these are dependent on war, unions, political, all sorts of reasons. Whereas if you've got a distributed network, which is millions of people like you and me, that can never be knocked out, because we're all acting independently with our own non-fossil fuel sources, which are free. They're never going to go up in price. And if we're using a CHP, which is fossil, or we're using a CHP on hydrogen, which is the best, or biomass, yeah, those prices are going to rise, but they're still going to be available, and biomass is never going to stop growing on the planet. So I think it's a far more secure and politically better, less open to interference. We're dependent on uranium, and there isn't enough uranium in the world. If at the present rate of offtake we're going to sink all the uranium in 45 years, it'll be gone. Well, 45 years is a long time, but if we start expanding it, like if we start, we're going to put 6, 10 new nuclear power stations in, maybe, and USA does the same, and Russia's doing the same, and Finland's reversed its thinking and is doing the same, and if every country does this, the uranium's going to run out in 10 years. Well, now we're out the frying pan into the fire, because we're jumping out of oil because it's running short and because of the ecological damage. We're jumping into uranium, and it's going to run short, and it does ecological damage just the same. So none of the central network methods of making electricity make sense to me, and that's why I think distributed networks are eventually going to win. It's a process of, oh yes, we're disagreeing. Southern Energy, yes, sign up, we got this for now, have a good supply time. Underneath, we'll bloody cut your legs off if you're not watching. We'll have you. We don't let you to supply it, and then we'll give you a poor rate for it, and we'll have all sorts of silly agreements, like if the grid fails, you've got to cut off as well. I mean, what's the point of that? We've got to have such that the grid fails and we carry on. In fact, we'll take over.